The human brain is a complex organ packed within our skull. It controls the information received through our body's 5 senses, namely sight, smell, touch, taste, and hearing. Essentially, the brain assembles this information in such a way that we can easily understand it. The average adult brain weighs around 3 pounds. The brain and spinal cord together form our body's central nervous system, CNS. Since the brain is a vital body organ, it is packaged within a thick protective bone known as the skull, as well as the meninges. The skull's role is to protect the brain from injury, while the meninges, made up of 3 tissue layers, provide additional protection. The outermost layer, called dura mater, is thick and tough, composed of thick fibrous tissues. The middle layer, known as arachnoid, is thin and transparent and also made of fibrous tissues. The innermost layer, called pia mater, is thin and vascular, directly attached to the brain surface. Between the arachnoid and pia mater, in an empty space, there's a special fluid called cerebrospinal fluid. Additionally, cerebrospinal fluid is found in the hollow cavities of the brain's deeper parts, known as ventricles. There are a total of 4 ventricles in the brain, and the fluid inside provides cushioning during injury. Now let's talk about the cellular composition of the brain. The brain consists of 2 types of cells: nerve cells, also called neurons, and glia cells. Neurons transfer information through electrical and chemical signals. There are approximately 100 billion neurons in the brain, while glia cells provide nourishment, protection, and structural support to neurons. The number of glia cells in the brain is greater than neurons. If the brain is divided into 2 equal parts, 2 different portions appear, known as gray and white matter. Gray matter refers to the brain's outer, darker portion, while white matter refers to the inner, lighter portion. Gray matter is made up of neuron cell bodies, while white matter is made of myelinated axons. Both regions play different roles. Gray matter processes and makes information meaningful, while white matter transfers processed information to the rest of the nervous system. Now let's discuss each part of the brain in detail. The part of the brain that processes information at a specific time needs more blood. With advancements in science, we can now study blood vessels inside the brain, making it extremely easy to understand the function of each part. Structurally, the brain has 3 main sections: the forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain, each containing multiple subparts. The structures found in the forebrain include the cerebrum, thalamus, pituitary gland, pineal gland, limbic system, and olfactory bulb. Cerebrum. The cerebrum is the largest portion of our brain and performs major functions like thinking and taking action. It can be divided into right and left hemispheres, connected by a bundle of axons called the corpus callosum. Each hemisphere controls the opposite parts of the body. For example, a stroke on the right side of the brain can weaken or paralyze our left arm or leg. The right hemisphere is considered the creative side, while the left is the logical side. In simple terms, the left hemisphere controls speech, comprehension, arithmetic, and writing, while the right controls creativity, spatial ability, artistic, and musical skills. The cerebrum has 2 regions: the outer, darker region called the cerebral cortex, and the inner, whitish region called the cerebral medulla. The surface of the cerebrum is called the cortex. It appears folded like hills and valleys. Due to neuron cell bodies, the color of the cortex is gray. You can think of the cerebral cortex like an orange peel. Imagine that if the gray matter is like the orange peel, the inside portion will be the medulla or white matter. The cortex's complex folding increases the brain's surface area, allowing more neurons to fit within the skull and perform more functions. Each fold of the cortex is called a gyrus, and each groove or empty space between folds is called a sulcus. Some larger grooves, known as fissures or hollow openings, divide the cerebrum into 4 large parts called lobes. Each lobe performs a specific function. Number 1. Frontal lobe. The frontal lobe is considered the largest lobe of the brain, and it's located in the front region of the head. It's separated from the parietal lobe by the central fissure and from the temporal lobe by the lateral fissure. Functionally, the frontal part of the cortex is divided into 3 sections, which include the prefrontal cortex, motor cortex, and Broca's area. Prefrontal cortex, situated at the front of the frontal lobe, this part handles the processing of intellectual and emotional information, including aggression, decision-making, and judgment. For example, if you are driving in a congested area, you must process lots of information in a short time, and the prefrontal lobe must remain constantly active so that you can make judgments at each step with ease. Motor cortex. This portion of the frontal lobe, located behind the prefrontal cortex, plays a critical role in controlling body movement. For example, if you move your hand to pick up a book from a table, the signals that sequence your arm muscles for easy book lifting come from the motor cortex. Broca's area, also known as the motor speech area, it is near the motor cortex and is used in speech production. This area regulates our breathing patterns and vocal cords during speaking. In simple terms, the frontal lobe controls voluntary movements, expressive language, and high-level executive functions like judgment. Number 2. Parietal lobe. Located right behind the frontal lobe and separated from it by the central sulcus, the parietal lobe can be divided into 3 regions: postcentral gyrus, superior lobule, and inferior parietal lobule. The innermost portion is called the postcentral gyrus, responsible for receiving signals from sensory receptors for temperature, pain, vibration, and fine touch. It mainly processes sensory information like when we touch something, it gives us impressions whether it's hot or cold, flat or round. The superior lobule connects sensory and motor neurons like sensory signals, activating motor function in a specific direction, like drinking water. It also helps in manipulating shapes and forming complex patterns called spatial reasoning ability. The inferior parietal lobule helps in solving mathematical operations like monthly investments, business turnovers, and understanding language. Number 3. Temporal lobe. Found on the sides of the brain, the temporal lobe is separated from the frontal lobe by the lateral fissure. Its cortical region controls auditory information, visual processing, and memory. Divisions in the temporal lobe include primary auditory cortex. This receives and processes auditory information from our ears, like laughing, crying, speaking, etc. Visual processing. Certain regions in the temporal lobe help us with visual processing like recognizing faces, scenes, heat, cold, air conditioning, traffic, etc. Memory. The hippocampus, present in the temporal lobe, is considered vital for memory, learning, and emotions, which we'll discuss later. Number 4. Occipital lobe. This lobe is located at the backside of the brain, attached to the parietal and temporal lobes. It's considered the main center for visual processing, allowing us to differentiate colors, recognize faces, and perceive depth, such as someone coming towards or moving away from us. Thalamus. The thalamus is a small, ovoid structure found exactly above the midbrain in the center of the brain. It acts as a regulatory gateway, transferring information from sensory receptors to the proper regions in the brain. Essentially, it diagnoses various sensory information such as auditory, visual, tactile, touch, and taste, and sends it to specific lobes in the cortex. Hence, the thalamus can be likened to a united parcel service. It collects information from different centers of the brain and the spinal cord and delivers it to the correct address in the cerebral cortex. Additionally, the thalamus controls the regulation of sleep, alertness, and waking. The limbic system. The limbic system is a complex structure located directly beneath the cerebrum. It includes the hypothalamus, hippocampus, and amygdala. Hypothalamus. Situated right below the thalamus and above the pituitary gland, the hypothalamus's most crucial function is linking the nervous system to the endocrine system through the pituitary glands. It also controls some somatic functions such as body temperature, sleep, and hunger. Hippocampus. Found in the cerebrum's medial temporal lobe, the hippocampus has a structure similar to a seahorse. Its primary role is in memory formation, especially connecting new memories with emotions and senses like smell and sound memories. If the hippocampus is damaged due to illness, like Alzheimer's disease or an accident, it leads to memory loss, and new memories cannot be saved. Amygdala. A small, roughly round structure, the amygdala is located right in front of the hippocampus in the medial temporal lobe. Its function is to produce emotional and behavioral characters, such as the sensation of fear, happiness, and social communication. Additionally, the amygdala connects with the brain's reward system, creating feelings of pleasure, such as enjoying food or loving someone. It also aids in stress responses like the fight or flight response. An injury to the amygdala can result in a loss of expression ability and control during stress. Pituitary glands. These pea-shaped glands are attached to the brain's hypothalamus through the pituitary stalk and are located right at the center of the skull, behind the nose bridge. The main function of the pituitary glands is to link the nervous system with the endocrine system. They release many hormones essential for growth, metabolism, sexual development, and the reproductive system. Olfactory bulb. The olfactory bulb is found on the inferior bottom side of the frontal lobe. It delivers information from the nose towards the brain, and hence, it's vital for a proper sense of smell. Pineal glands. Attached to the third ventricle, the pineal glands secrete melatonin and regulate the body's internal clock and circadian rhythms. If the pineal glands are not functioning properly, it can disturb our sleeping patterns, leading to insomnia. The pineal gland also plays a role in sexual development. In this complex network of structures and functions, each part plays a significant role in maintaining the body's harmony and response mechanisms. From sensory perception to emotional expression, the components described above govern essential aspects of human behavior and physiological function. Midbrain. Located beneath the cerebral cortex and above the hindbrain, the midbrain is found in the center of the brain. It's the smallest region of the brain and serves as a relay station for our visual and auditory systems. Two pairs of cranial nerves, including the oculomotor and trochlear nerves, emerge from the midbrain, controlling the eye and eyelid movement. Parts of the midbrain, like the red nucleus and substantia nigra, regulate body movement. A large number of dopamine-producing neurons are present, and the degeneration of nerves stemming from the substantia nigra leads to Parkinson's disease. Hindbrain. The hindbrain is one of the three essential regions of the brain, located in the lower back part. It consists of three significant parts: the pons, cerebellum, and medulla oblongata. You've likely heard of the brainstem, where the midbrain, pons, and medulla join together. These essentially act as a bridge for information transfer between the brain and spinal cord. Cerebellum. The largest part of the hindbrain, the cerebellum is located at the backside of the brain beneath the occipital lobe. Like the cerebral cortex, it has two hemispheres, each controlling motor activity in its half side of the body. The cerebellum regulates and coordinates muscle movements, helping in posture and balance, and even in some cognitive functions like learning language, riding a bicycle, and playing music. Pons. Found between the medulla and midbrain, the pons looks like a large section of the medulla. It plays a vital role in the autonomic nervous system, such as breathing and digestion. It also relays motor information between the cerebellum and cerebrum. Injury to the pons can result in impaired breathing or coma. Medulla oblongata. Located between the pons and spinal cord, the medulla oblongata is the most inferior portion of the brainstem. Its functions are involuntary, and we cannot live without it, as it controls essential functions like breathing, blood pressure, cardiac rhythms, and swallowing. Being part of the brainstem, it also transports nerve messages from the brain towards the spinal cord. As we studied the structures of the brain, let's now see how information is transmitted from the brain to the body. The brain communicates with the body at all times through the spinal cord and 12 pairs of cranial nerves. These cranial nerves, part of the peripheral nervous system, or PNS, control hearing, eye movement, facial sensations, taste, and movements of the face, neck, shoulders, and tongue muscles. The nerves for smell and vision originate from the cerebrum. Finally, let's explore how the brain's blood supply ensures its proper functioning. Two sets of blood vessels supply the brain with blood and oxygen, including the vertebral arteries and internal carotid arteries. The internal jugular veins are considered vital for the movement of blood from the brain towards the heart. Thanks for watching.